All right, how's it going, everyone? Thanks for joining me on a new episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week on the Music Reviewer podcast for the week of May 15th. So yeah, we have a pretty loaded episode this week. We have an album bomb from Khaled from DJ Khaled's latest album. And honestly, I'll say it right now, however you feel about DJ Khaled, there's some stuff on here that I was actually pleased to hear. And the consistency from track to track isn't, as bad as one would presume. But anyways, yeah, we have that coming up on this episode. And then also, some tracks from other various artists. New one, Cico P, Cole Swindell, NLE Choppa, Baby Keem and Travis Scott. And then also, I think Thomas Rhett's in here, Joyner Lucas and Lil Baby. A lot of Lil Baby features also. So you've been warned. But yeah, that's a brief preview of this week's episode. And if you're new to Best and Worst Track of the Week, this is just a show on a podcast where I talk about music, where I take all new entries into the Billboard Hot 100, grade each one with the letter grade, and take one that's the worst, take one that's the best, and it's pretty much all it is. And loaded episode this week, a lot of tracks, but I'm actually kind of excited for that because the last couple of weeks have just been a bit, not the most interesting. We'll just say that. Alright, so let's get to it. First track this week, Thankful featuring Lil Wayne and Jerimih by DJ Khaled at 100. First track of the album bomb that came in from that new Khaled album. So just so you know, there's going to be a lot more DJ Khaled. This one was probably one of the, subpar ones. Honestly, the reception I had from this was that the album was a lot better than I expected from what I've heard. But this track, to me, at the beginning, it sounded like some slow R&B from the 2000s, a la Baby Bash, with the thin and twangy guitar to start off. And it really seems like around that moment, the track has a sort of grandiose nature to it, or at least tries to. But what really is off and bad about this track is that there's absolutely no percussion. And you kind of really realize that by the time we get into the bulk of the track, where Jerimih starts singing, some sort of chorus material, that he's mainly the star of the show here. It's a bit of an odd track because of that, and honestly, I don't even hate the oversaturated gospel vocals that's all over this thing. They have some authenticity to them. I can believe that it's a legit gospel choir singing it. But the track is missing some groove big time. I appreciate the bass line holding it down, but it's really not enough. And honestly, Lil Wayne, he kind of just is a bit unoriginal here. He does his thing, but he kind of just goes off of the flow from Kendrick Lamar's Humble on here. So I gave this track a C. Next track was actually a bit of a surprise, and in a good way. Tampa by Cico P. I don't know if I'm saying that right, because this is an artist I'm being introduced to on this episode at 97. And honestly, this track, it's really moody to begin with. There's some etherealness to it, like some earlier Nav material, if you will. It sounds a bit different, at least, to like the contemporary pop trap scene. It's melodic and a bit colorful with how the double vocal line fits into the track's nature. But that does get a bit static, but it kind of really just works. It reminds me of the same mood that Day and Night had when Kid Cudi came out with that hit quite a bit ago now. But I kind of get the same vibe from it, so I give this track a B. Who knows? This could be a potential big hit. I don't know. This track, next track by Cole Swindell at 95, Single Saturday Night. Honestly, there's two tracks I almost missed this week. This was one of them because there's so many entries. When I looked over the chart again, I was pleasantly surprised to see Cole Swindell. I will say I am a bit of a Cole fan. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Although I'm not like super into country, especially nowadays. Cole, I think, has been a somewhat consistent artist, and he kind of just does his own thing as much as he can within that Nashville country scene. This track, though, it's a bit poppy for him. There's some bright electronic elements that coat the track to kick it off. The main guitar riff sounds pretty synthetic, but the track does give off some summer country hit vibes automatically. Like, I can just see this doing well and being like a hit. coming into the summer months. A nice punchy bass groove on the track, a typical country track lyrically about running into a hot chick and falling in love with her. Pretty standard of modern pop country, honestly. And like I said, it's just very poppy for Cole, even though he is like a pop country artist. It kind of feels more of like a Luke Bryan type of song. Which, yeah, Cole Swindell probably has wrote songs for Luke Bryan. But it's just missing some things. There's a brief country like rock guitar solo that I wish was maybe experimented and held out a bit longer, and to give the track a bit more, make the track at least a little bit interesting. But I thought it was okay. I give it a B. Next track by NLE Choppa, 90, Final Warning. Not too much to say about this track. It sounds like Little Durk, but the beat actually has some nice moments. The brief moments of drill beat when the subways make the track a lot better. He rides the beat quite well. It's not bad. Honestly, NLE, this track is just kind of a good example of how NLE continues to be a slight cut above the modern rapper. I do mean that. He usually doesn't piss me off with how other artists within this genre do. So he is at least interesting in my opinion. I give it a B. Next one was Do-Rag Activity by Baby Keem and Travis Scott at 85. I mean, this honestly just sounds more of like a Travis Scott song more than anything, rather than a collaboration between Baby Keem. And granted, I am very limited with what I actually know about Baby Keem's discography and what he's kind of bringing to the rap game. But Travis just immediately dominates this track as soon as he appears. I think he comes in after a verse or exposition by Baby Keem, and he goes, what I appreciate about Travis's performance here, it seems like he goes into different characters, even some K-Dot like influences. The track also has a trancey nature that is brought by the percussion, so I thought was quite nice. And the hook is kind of dumb, honestly, and so is the premise, like lyrically, but that's not saying much. This is like B-ish. I give it around like a B or B minus. Next track, Big Paper, featuring Cardi B, by DJ Khaled. If I said DJ Khaled throughout this episode, I'm sorry. DJ Khaled at 84. Kind of seems like the Friday night remix sort of shit going on, like they hear on the local rap station, like on a Friday or Saturday night on this track. I mean, that kind of makes sense considering how DJ Khaled got to start, like in Miami being like one of those DJs. But this track kind of just has a sense that it's meant for a track you just put on specifically for speeding down the highway. Obviously like at an unreasonable speed. And I think this is one of the better technical performances I've heard from Cardi B. It's not bad. I kind of really dug what she was doing all throughout the track, and she's the only artist on here that's really doing anything. So I will say that about some of DJ Khaled's music is that he brings out at times the best of certain artists. So that track is an example of that, I think. Alright, so next track, Baby in Motion, featuring Bryson Tiller, Lil Baby, Roddy Ricch by DJ Khaled at 79. Honestly, when I first heard this, the first couple seconds, I thought it was the same sample that Juice WRLD used in Lucid Dreams by Sting, but it's not. It's just another random acoustic guitar sample. And, Bryson sounds a lot like other artists here at times, although I'm not too familiar with what Bryson Tiller usually brings to his music, because I don't listen to the guy on a daily basis. He sounds like maybe like Chris Brown or even Jerimih at times. Probably one of the better choruses of this week out of all the batches of tracks, with the R&B vibe going on. The beat really keeps the track going as well, as we get several repeats of the chorus, in a good way, of course. Like it's at least fun every time it's brought up. Honestly, it just feels more like a Bryson Tiller track more than anything. Lil Baby's verse had its moments. He goes into like his hybrid rap singing. And, Roddy Ricch was probably the most lukewarm out of this bunch. And then also DJ Khaled has a awful poem at the end of this track. But musically, stylistically, and what's brought to the table, I give it a B. Next track, a country track, Country Again by Thomas Rhett at 73. It honestly kind of opens up feeling like a Blake Shelton track. There's a serene, slow, typical country opening. Topically, it's about staying true to your roots. Track can use maybe a pick-me-up or some momentum boost by the second verse. Also, the drums sound quite weak and small on this track overall. I don't know. They just sound muted. I don't know if that's a production choice or flaw. I thought it was okay. Give it a B-. Next track, Robin and OJ by Joyner Lucas, Little Baby at 67. I don't really know that much about Joyner Lucas other than he is somewhat of a hated rapper in some circles. But Joyner, in my opinion, as soon as this track opens up, it's just overly hitting on the attempts to sell this tough guy, School of Hard Knocks persona. And it sounds like a budget little Durk track. Little Baby kind of just takes Lucas to school on this track too. Like anytime Lucas isn't on here and Little Baby is doing his thing, he kind of just makes it his own track. His flow is just more interesting and technical, and just overall, like I said, he's just doing more. The beat is pretty stagnant too, with the triplet piano melody never once changing in the slightest, and it's literally the only thing we get musically. So yeah, gave it a C. Next track, I Did It, featuring Post Malone, Megan Thee Stallion, Little Baby, and DaBaby by DJ Khaled at 43. The fucking Eric Clapton sample on this, I think it's one of his better known tracks. And honestly, I would want a former stripper like Megan Thee Stallion doing their thing over the sample from a coked out rock star. It just feels more authentic that way. Post Malone really sounds phoned in on this track though. I honestly, unless he wasn't credited, I wouldn't know it's Post Malone. Like there's none of his signature charm on here. DaBaby does the same verse every time, like on most tracks, but honestly he's the best one on this thing. I don't know what happened to Little Baby, but DaBaby just completely takes everyone to school here. Megan, did do a nice job though, but they gave like DaBaby the more interesting beat fluctuations and character in the track, so it's a head scratcher, especially with that Eric Clapton sample. It sounds a bit cheap at times. I give that track a C+. Next track by DJ Khaled at 30, Sorry Not Sorry, featuring Nas and Jay-Z and James Fauntleroy. He's the dude doing vocals on here. And I'm not a huge fan of what he lays down with the soulful and lethargic chorus. The vocal effect on the voice that is just saturated with isn't too flattering either. This track just really seemed like it maybe had more potential, but it opens up with some Kanye influence as well. Nas has his typical husky delivery that's pretty nice over here, and Jay-Z even fits in quite well, but I just think the track had a lot more potential, so I go to B. Next track by DJ Khaled at 20, Every Chance I Get, featuring Little Baby and Lil Durk. I think that's like 3 Lil Baby tracks in a row. I honestly don't know. He's just on everything this week. And this is probably... this was going to get best track of the week had I not made a mistake and left out another track, unfortunately, the first time doing this. Listening to the batch of tracks this week, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I guess I'll spoil it. 21 Savage should have been on this track. And if that's foreshadowing what's coming down the pipeline later this episode. Instead, we got Little Baby. It's a dark beat. It was given to Little Baby instead, and I don't know what choice DJ Khaled made on here, but you put 21 Savage on a sinister, dark, moody beat. That's what he does. And I'm glad they put Lil Durk on here because he does well over stuff like this. He sounds turned down a bit for some reason at times. I don't know if that's just a technical thing, engineering wise, but probably this beat was just incredible. It's the best beat this week. And, Little Baby just kind of ruins it a bit by putting his busy flow on it. He does that on every track, but Lil Durk just kills this track and kills the verse. I really would have wanted 21 Savage on here. Has some Lil Wayne influence on Durk's verse as well. He even references Took Her to the O with that King Von track that he did. B+, really good track. All right, so it's that time of the show where we do best and worst track of the week. Since we went through everything else, and we always start with worst track of the week to leave off on a positive note. And I was foreshadowing to it earlier. Worst track of the week was by DJ Khaled, "Let It Go," featuring Justin Bieber and 21 Savage. And who honestly fucking asked for Justin Bieber and 21 Savage to be on the same track together? They in no way, shape, or form complement each other. Their fan bases are probably extremely polarizing from each other. I just don't get it. I don't know who asked for this. And immediately as I'm listening to this, I'm just thinking, wow, this really happened. They managed to get 21 Savage to sound sanitary and inoffensive on a verse that's obviously meant for pop radio rotation. That is eventually inevitably going to be like being played at, I don't know, a Target or I don't know, wherever they play top 40 music while you're shopping. And then on top of that, whoever wrote this track at the end put in some whoa-ohs, like millennial vocal stylization on the track for the cherry on top to complement the Justin Bieber aesthetic. And not to say Justin Bieber can't make different music or can't collab with rappers. This was just the wrong thing to do. And the fact that DJ Khaled put his stamp on this, not to say there's that much pedigree, but dude, you've made way better shit than this. Every single one of the artists here has. I can pick out most of the tracks off of Justice, the last album from Justin Bieber, that can run circles around this track. And then also the last Metro Boomin and 21 Savage album was really good. And this is just a step down for everyone here. No one wins in this situation. So yeah, worst track of the week goes to that track. Best track of the week, it was kind of a default thing. It was Your Power by Billie Eilish at number 10. Honestly, I am pleased to see that it debuted that high, but I honestly thought that this could have just because of the hype and buzz that I was seeing right as it was released, especially with that Vogue thing that she did to go along with it, I thought this was probably going to debut at least in the top 5. But I don't know. I don't really think that's that important because the track's killer. Some pretty standard indie folk nature going on. Definitely Bon Iver, and then other multiple various indie artists influence on here. I like the bright tone coming from those acoustic guitars that structure the track. They're just very clean and bright sounding. It sounds like you're right next to them when you're listening. Her higher falsetto register hits really nicely every time she goes for it on that one main melodic motif. It's a bit soaked in reverb though. Some nice warm accompanying low end on here that I thought was incredibly produced. It's honestly, you feel it more than you hear it, and that's quite interesting how they captured that. The reiteration of the chorus has a powerful effect every time it's returned to. The lead guitar melody that follows the main motif and her vocals is great as well. It's just a nicely written track. Her vocals are quite stunning on here at times, and I don't know. I like this side of her music. I don't think her whole album is going to sound like this, but if she were to take a direction in this style for a lot of her music in the future, she is going to have in my opinion, a really long-lasting career. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Best track of the week goes to Billie Eilish for that. But yeah, thanks for listening to this episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week. If you stuck with me the whole entire time, I know it was a bit lengthy with the amount of tracks that we had, but I appreciate you listening once again. Like and subscribe on YouTube if you're digging what you heard. Also, subscribe on your preferred streaming service, and then also leave a comment on YouTube if you can. Tell me it was bad or good. I don't care. Anyways, take care of yourselves. I'll see you later. And this is just a quick announcement for the this YouTube version of the podcast. Since this is condensed, if you're by chance wanting to hear the full version of the podcast, I link always in the comment section the full Spotify episode. there's just a full episode where I kind of just like talk more and like lead up to like the song reviews, where I drop like some announcements of the podcast and kind of like warm up to like what's going on this episode and the tracks that I'm about to review and really what's going on the chart. But yeah, if you're interested in listening to that, go ahead and check out the full episode on the bottom of this video in the comment section. Also, if you want to listen to the music reviewer on your respective streaming service, that's cool too. You can honestly find the main page on anchor.com with the music reviewer profile, or you can just go on really any mainstream listening platform, TuneIn, Overcast, Apple Podcasts. Basically, if it supports podcasts, I'm probably on there. But yeah, announcement over.